Then this new cigarette ban shit. Have you seen this? This fucking guy. This guy raised. He doesn't have the power to do it. So 2019, been a crazy year, man. We're about to get into 2020, and I want to go over just the unconstitutionality of President Trump and just how he has committed these acts of against the American people by passing said laws. So it starts with the bump stock ban, right? I think that was back in March. So the bump stock ban is 100% unconstitutional. Any government restriction at all on the right to bear arms is unconstitutional. It's plain. I mean, the right to bear arms is one of the easier things to understand in the Constitution and the original Bill of Rights, right? So it's really easy to understand. Now, you'll have people on that defend President Trump. They'll say things like, well, we didn't really need bump stocks. It's a dumb modification, which it is, a stupid modification. We didn't really need it, so who cares? Okay, you got those people. Then you got the people that are saying, well, the Democrats want way worse, so I'll just put up with it. Okay, you got those people. Then you got people that will argue and say, well, it doesn't actually go against the Constitution, because it's an accessory, and the right to bear arms is only for actual weaponry, or it's only for guns or whatever that they want to, whatever verbiage they want to use, which is just obviously inaccurate, right? So anything, so a gun control on the right to bear arms, right? Arms meaning armaments, right? Back then, well, still now, but that's how it was framed back then. And armaments is anything anything that has to do, with those weapons, right? Any attachables, anything to those weapons. And if they want to say, well, it's only for specific things, it's totally inaccurate, because back then we had the same exact we had the same exact artillery that the standing army had. In most cases, we actually had better weapons than the army had, or the military had, because there were plenty of people that were creating great weapons in the time than just one-shot muskets that took a minute to reload. They had guns that were firing 7 shots at a time. They had some that could hold 30 rounds, right? I think the one of the guns, it was the repeater. I forgot who makes it, but it was like 16 to 20 rounds that it could hold, and they were trying to sell it to the U.S. military, which almost went through. They were trying to sell like 100 of them to them, but the U.S. military was conscious on the cost of these guns, and they basically just couldn't fucking afford it. So it never went through. But anyway, so yeah, we had everything. We had cannons, warships. We had grenades, right? Not the same grenades that we have today, but we still had hand grenades. So yeah, everything, man. So that's not even an argument. And the so going back on the people that say that, well, the Democrats want more. Sure, the Democrats say that they want more, but historically they haven't passed more. Historically, they just haven't passed more. So the Democrats can say anything that they want. As far as gun rights go, it's better for a president to be Democrat, just historically, because Republicans fight them tooth and nail when it comes to gun rights, or gun control, because they don't want Democrats passing gun control. Only when Republicans want gun control can gun control be allowed, right? That's how they operate. So yeah, it's actually better historically for Democrats to be in POTUS than for Republicans, because Republicans just ruin everything. As soon as Republicans say that they want gun control, then Democrats are right, fuck yeah, we want some gun control, and then they all pass it together. So yeah, so it's it's crazy. So bump stock ban, that was the first thing. Infringement on your Second Amendment, and that's it. Then he talked about more legislation, right? Now, nothing actually passed after that, but we know that he talked about things like red flag laws. He wanted background checks. And if you remember when he was talking about red flag laws, he was even talking about yeah, we need to do these red flag laws because of we got to think of mass shootings and things like that. Even there's no data to back up that any gun control deters mass shootings at all. In fact, most mass shootings, over 90% of mass shootings, happen in gun-free zones. So I would say that the more guns, the better, right? The more sane people with guns, the better. But it's not the government's job to determine who is sane and who is not sane. So you have that, right? And what was even more hilarious when this whole thing came out is after he's talking about red flag laws and things like that. That guy, what's that reporter's name? Cuomo or Kumo or whatever, goes by Fredo. It's a joke on him. They call him Fredo, but Fredo came out. It was this video that was taken that went viral, and Fredo is basically off air in his own personal life, and he was threatening some guy that he was going to basically beat him up, right? He didn't say he was going to kill him or anything like that, but he said that he was going to beat him up for the most part, right? So then President Trump takes to tweeting like he does, and then he says that, we should take his guns. Under red flag law, we should take his guns. He shouldn't have the right to bear arms. And I'm sitting here like, that is fucking crazy, right? That's so crazy. You can't be saying shit like that, right? Because you can't do things like that. So, for anyone to take away someone's weapons because they are threatening to beat somebody up is insane. That's what these red flag laws would do, ultimately. Right, you get into a fight. You have any type of acts of aggression in your past, whether you got into a fight with a neighbor, your brother, you threatened somebody that you were gonna, go over there and kick their ass or whatever it was gonna be, or maybe you're just depressed. Maybe you're depressed. You're listening to weird emo music and super depressing music and all this shit. You're walking in the rain with no umbrella, your head down, and you got nothing left. It looks like you have nothing left in the world. You know what? That guy's probably crazy. We need to take away his right to bear arms because we can't have him having that. Right? It's insane. No government infringement at all. Zero. None. No government infringement whatsoever. No age restrictions on guns, no red flag laws, no mental health screenings, no background checks, none of that. That all has to be left up to the private business owners, right? Even the states can't get involved in that constitutionally. The states can't get involved because the states do have, or are supposed to have, most of the power, right? Well, the states and their respective people are supposed to make these decisions together, but not the federal government, right? So the states are supposed to have this. However, the states have to follow constitutional law. So if there is like the right to bear arms explicitly, if there is the right to bear arms and it shall not be infringed at all, right? The right to bear arms of the people shall not be infringed. Where we are now is so bad that we can't even hold the government accountable for these things. Not really. I mean, we can. And we can petition and we can boycott and we can make podcasts and we can write letters and picket signs and all that stuff. And some people may physically aggress towards, government. I'm not saying right or wrong here. What I will say is that in history, when there is government tyranny, especially, Americans, we fight back against government tyranny. So it's only going to be so long until some people, and again, I'm not advocating for it, but some people, they start that boogaloo, man. They start that boogaloo shit, man. So, but yeah, we have to hold government accountable. So it doesn't It doesn't matter. Any infringement is an infringement. So yes, he violated our Second Amendment. Is what it is. Republicans are historical for this shit. They are historical for it. You got who you got? Calvin Coolidge was the very first Republican president. He was the first president to pass federal gun restrictions, federal gun control. And he was a Republican. And then people will say, well, it depends on who was in the Senate and the House. Great point. So both the Senate and the House at the time when Coolidge passed it were both Republican. They were majority Republican. So the whole lot of them, Republicans, did it. It was about banning you couldn't mail firearms, like specific firearms anymore and things like that through through the mail. And if it was only like through government mail or whatever, and privately owned mail services could do it, then I'd be like, oh, okay, well, I don't know. It's still an infringement, but whatever. But it doesn't matter. It's anyone, right? You can't be. I couldn't create a mail service today and mail a weapon. It's illegal, right? Well, not really. They said it's illegal, but it's an infringement. It goes against the Constitution, so you take it how you will. So anyway, you have that. Then you have he just re-signed the Patriot Act. Now this, and he signed off on this shit. But I'm not cutting him any slack, but I will say that the Democrats did throw that shit in there. So the Democrats were having this bill, basically the spending bill, and wanted to make sure there was no government shutdown and all this other shit. And they threw in there, I think it was like Nancy Pelosi that threw it in there too, or whoever, but she was like leading the charge or something. I have to take a look back at a few articles, but the Democrats basically threw it in there into the spending bill, and Trump signed off on it. Knew that it was in there, but he signed off on it. And it makes no sense at all, because Democrats believe that Trump needs to be out of office and that he does all these atrocious things, yet they want to give him power to spy on Americans. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Even like AOC and Ilhan Omar came out saying, yeah, I'm not with that shit. They didn't vote for it. I think only like 10 Democrats didn't vote for it, and they were 2 of them. They're like, yeah, I'm not with that. Probably the only good thing that I've seen them do recently. And yeah, so he signed, but Trump signed it. Totally signed it. So the Patriot Act is good for another couple of months, and then we'll see if it's going to be re-signed again. But if you don't know, like even Edward Snowden had a great podcast with Joe Rogan. If you haven't watched it or haven't watched or listened to it, I think it came out like a month or 2 ago, and I listened to it, and it was great. Or maybe 3 months ago. But either way, I listened to it like a month ago, and it was just incredible. It was great. Really hearing his insight on what he's doing and what he did to combat the federal government when he stood up. He was in a position of crazy power that he kind of even just stumbled into, and then he's just like, well, wait a minute, like this shit isn't right. You know what I mean? It's like we can't be doing this shit on Americans, man. So yeah, he basically aired all that info out, and then federal government went after him. But anyway, so he re-signed the Patriot Act. Obviously goes against your Fourth Amendment, right? So the Patriot Act gives the government the ability to simplify it, to spy on Americans. And it's so vague. It's so vague that it can really just be interpreted to spy on them for really just about anything or any type of suspicion. And that's the biggest problem with these government bills and especially things like when I relate it to like red flag laws. It's so vague. Forget about red flag laws. I mean, it's just unconstitutional no matter what. So it doesn't matter what the bill would say. I would still say doesn't matter because it's unconstitutional. But let's just say for a second, for argument's sake, that it wasn't unconstitutional. The problem is that when they write these things, they leave it so vague because they want to be able to just abuse the hell out of this shit. They want to be able to use it and bend the law to their will. They want to be able to do whatever they want. And the only way to combat them, if you look at history, man, the only way to combat a tyrannical government, or let's just say, let's flip it, let me flip it around. How a government becomes a dictatorship and like an authoritative or authoritarian government, authoritarian society, the first thing that they have to do, if they're smart, is they have to disarm the citizens. They got to disarm the public. Because what easier way to their victory than by disarming you? If we took all your guns away, and Republicans will jump in there and say, well, it's never going to happen. Dude, Republicans, you people have been implementing gun control for a century now. A century. Coolidge, Nixon, Reagan, Bush 1, Bush 2, Trump. You guys have been implementing gun control, and I don't care how large or small, you have implemented, I think it's like twice the amount of federal gun control than Democrats. And that's not to say that the Democrats didn't want to implement more, because you guys try and stop them when they're in office, but when you're in office, you're like, nah, we need some gun control for whatever prejudicial reason that you guys come up with. So you've had this happening for like a century now. It's just going to continue. This is why I will refuse to vote Republican. Because, and you have new people that come out, and I respect people. Even if they're Republican, I can still respect them. I don't agree with their Republican platform, and I will try and convince them to come over to like the Constitution Party, like what I'm a member of. Or even the Libertarian Party for the most part would be better. I don't know, though. You know how I feel about the Republican or the Libertarian Party. There's a bunch of children in there. But yeah, just to get away from there. Get away from Republicans. Because Republicans have been doing this shit for a century, same as Democrats. They have both got it insanely wrong. Right? Especially when it comes to gun rights. Insanely wrong. So when we talk about things like the Patriot Act and things like this, these people feel confident enough to do this because they've already disarmed us. They haven't completely disarmed us, but they've disarmed us enough. Definitely enough to where they feel confident to pass unconstitutional law. Now, Republicans are just as guilty, if not more guilty. So, no, I will never vote Republican, ever. Right? I don't care what Republican guy gets in office. I like Justin Amash. Justin Amash was actually one of the guys that he was he petitioned like against this Patriot Act, and yeah, just fell on deaf ears, man. Fell on deaf ears, bro. But I like Justin Amash. But if he ran for Republican, I just can't. I couldn't do it. And people will say, well, wait a minute. I mean, you have the better chance of winning if you're a Republican. That's fair. And that's probably true. But that's a problem. They shouldn't have the better chance of winning. We have to get in third party. We have to get the Republicans and the Democrats out because they have corrupted the system. They have eroded our rights. And their corruption just goes too deep. It's just too deep. It's down to the fucking roots, man. So we just have to get them out of there. And we have to bring in more. It's no longer bipartisan. Like, we need more parties. But how do you do that? Well, it's funny you ask. To do that, we need to vote these motherfuckers in. We need to stop voting for Republicans and Democrats. Oh, wait a minute. We got to get the Democrats out, man, because socialism and all this other crap and all this shit, it's just fear-mongering, man. It's fear-mongering. Well, yeah, I would vote for them, but I don't think that they're going to win. So when they're more eligible to win, then I'll go ahead and I'll vote for them. How the fuck are they going to be more eligible if nobody will vote for them? Everybody has this same fucking mind state. Oh, well, I will when they're more likely to win. How are they going to be more likely to win then? Got to vote them in. So, yeah. So I vote third party, man. I definitely vote for third party. But anyway, so you got the bump stock ban, you got the Patriot Act. Then this new cigarette ban shit. Have you seen this? This fucking guy. This guy raised. He doesn't have the power to do it. The federal government doesn't have the power to do this. They raised the smoking age federally from 18 to 21. And Trump said something like, yeah, we got to do it. We got to think about the children. The fuck is raising it from 18 to 21 going to do? They were still getting it illegally, you idiot. They were still doing that. Right? Oh, man. But you know what? He must be right. I mean, putting the drinking age at 21, I don't think I've ever seen anyone under the age of 21 make it out with alcohol. For real. Definitely at no college party I was ever at when I was like 18 and 19. We knew that the drinking age was 21, so we just refused to drink. Oh, man. Cray, man. It's just cray. But this is your president. It's our president. But this is your guy, meaning this is the guy that you guys want, Republicans. And what's even sadder is that people, even seeing these facts in front of them, they are like Ray Charles in this bitch. They just can't see it. Right? Straight up Stevie Wondering this shit. Or make up any crazy justification that they can just because they're anti-Democrat. Right? And it's like this cult following. And it's not because Trump, some people argue that he has a cult following, but it's not even about Trump himself. It's just about it's an online cult. People like to feel like they're a part of something. And when they see crazy funny videos of leftists just freaking out, and they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to be on the opposite side. I'm going to be pro-Republican. I'm going to be pro-Trump. I'm going to be pro all these things. And I got caught up in that trap originally too. You know, I already had some of those views already, but then I was just like, yeah, fuck it. You know what? I'll get down with Trump because he's super anti-leftist. He owns them a lot in the media. It's hilarious. So let's just go ahead and do that. Until I started looking at the shit that he was passing and saying that he wanted to pass and all this, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like this isn't right. But people refuse, man. And they refuse to admit when they're wrong. They refuse to admit when they're wrong. It's insane. Even faced with so much data, historical data. Nah, well, this is just how I feel. It's crazy. It's crazy. These are the people that are voting. But yeah, so that was 2019. So bump stock ban, he had the Patriot Act, and then this new cigarette craziness. He wanted to get them with the vapes too. Wanted to get them with the vapes. Remember when he wanted to pass he wanted to go against your First Amendment. He wanted to impose a new amendment which isn't unconstitutional. You can have more amendments added to the Constitution. We typically, as constitutionalists, don't like that. We don't like alterations at all to the original Bill of Rights, because just about anything that came after the Bill of Rights that is an amendment, first of all, two things that were just completely unconstitutional, which is, the prohibition on alcohol, and then it was the IRS, right? So, but even the other stuff, even like slavery and things like that, there didn't need to be a constitutional amendment for it, right? We didn't need it, right? All men are created equal. It said that, right? It's part of your declaration and part of your Constitution, man. So we didn't actually need a lot of those things. Society could have just imposed that, on their own. We didn't need constitutional amendments for it. But anyway, so he wanted that an additional amendment, which isn't unconstitutional, but he wanted an additional amendment that said that American flag burning would be illegal, which goes against your First Amendment. So it is unconstitutional if you impose something that directly goes against the original Bill of Rights. So if it goes against that, that's unconstitutional. So, and then you had Republicans that were rallying behind him. They were rallying. They were like, fuck yeah. True diehard patriots, right? Yeah, don't burn my flag. This shit's going to be illegal or I'm going to beat your ass or whatever it is. Like, I would never associate with people that burn American flags, man. It's not my thing, but I will support their right to do that shit because it is their right. Right. So they wanted to make that, and Candace Owens, who huge Trump supporter. Oh man. She was saying, yeah, and if I was president, if you were burning an American flag, you'd have a year. You'd have 1 year to pack up your shit, her words, pack up your shit and get out. Just get out of the country. She wants to deport people. She wants to make them no longer citizens if you burn an American flag. It's crazy, guys. These are Republicans, right? I loathe Republicans more and more. Every day by day, I see myself just loathing Republicans more than Democrats because at least with Democrats, they're upfront about their unconstitutionality. They're upfront with just not wanting to obey the Constitution, and they're very upfront of wanting to take people's guns. Okay, at least I know where they stand, right? They're very upfront. I respect that more when they're upfront about that. But Republicans, they put on this facade. They put on this show that no, we're the party of the Constitution, of gun rights and all this other shit. But they're not. They're totally not. They're the opposite. So, yeah, that was Trump, 2019, y'all. 2019, the unconstitutionality of Trump. I am not taking away from any of the things that he may have done that are good. There are plenty of things that Trump does that are good that I'll say, oh, this is good. But that doesn't matter. I got into this debate. I was in this debate with, if you watch my previous video with Brandon from That's the Point, and he brought up the thing about Trump's with unemployment rate, like under President Trump, even though it was already declining with Obama. But I give it to you. Okay, fine. We're talking about the unemployment rate under President Trump. Sure, lowest unemployment rate for minorities like ever. That's good, but it's not what's most important. It's not. The economy is definitely important. 100%. The economy is great right now under President Trump. Can't deny it. It's irrefutable. But it's not what's most important. What's most important is a constitutionally limited government. That's it. Because if you put the economy or whatever, or jobs, let's just focus on something specific. Jobs. We'll talk about jobs. If you put jobs above all else, if we brought unemployment, let's say that we could bring unemployment to zero. Just zero. It's impossible. But let's just say we could bring it to zero. Nothing. But in order to do that, we had to take away your First, Second, Third, and Fourth Amendment. Just hypothetically. Is it worth it? I mean, everyone has jobs. But is it worth it? No, it's not. But you'll have people that say, yeah, it is worth it. I'll sacrifice some rights to make sure that we have jobs and food on the table. What the fuck are we talking about, guys? Freedom is what's most important. Freedom. Watch Braveheart, man. Watch Braveheart. Freedom. So yeah. 2019 Trump.